I'd like to call this.
Mayor Wolcott,
Here.
Vice Mayor Biendo,
Here.
Councilmember Williams,
Here.
Councilmember Villanueva, Councilmember Alton,
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the regular agenda is, there are non-public items, and the first one is?
This is a project update
Oh,
for
excuse me, apologize.
Don't we have to do that?
If you will all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Amen. Next item.
This is a project update for CIP 21114, disinfection by product reduction, and that will be Terry Lowe.
Welcome, Terry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I will be brief, but I wanted to bring back before you just a quick update on the total trihalomethanes project, better known as TTHM, and where we are compared to when we last met. I'll give a quick overview of the project, give you a quick update, and then our financials and our next steps. If you recall, we have TTHM levels are currently that we are putting back in the aquifer through our reclaim line are at or near ADEQ APP protection limits, and so we have a mandate to bring those levels down. Our intent of the project again is to develop a method to maintain our compliance with those levels. And about a year ago, we brought forth a pilot study to utilize a rarely used but effective method to bring those down, known as parasitic acid, or PAA. It is new in the wastewater world, and so we required ADEQ and Maricopa County Environmental Services to authorize this pilot study, and per their requirement, we move forward. Unfortunately, as we move forward with the pilot study, it became really clear that the cost of PAA in what we would need for this project would vastly exceed what we have budgeted for our operations, as well as its intended benefit. The cost would really outweigh its intended benefit, and so we've asked the consultant to reevaluate based on the cost evaluations that we are seeing now for the PAA. And a new recommendation is to use chloramines, which is ammonia hydroxide solution that is much more prevalent in the industry. Many communities utilize it. It is also cheaper to procure on an ongoing basis. And so the new recommendation has the chloramination system will be designed and constructed so that in the future, when PAA comes into the forefront as a solution, the injection method can utilize whatever chemical feed system we designed to use. So basically, project budget was $1,050,000. Prior year expenditures were about $65,000. 13, we anticipate through the end of the month here about $50,000, leaving us a budget of about $935,000. Our estimates for the chloramination system is about $400,000. So we will see some significant project savings, for this project. So our next steps will be to complete the design of this more traditional method, bid the fabrication of the work, and then bring it back for council approval to construct and install this system. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Council members, questions? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. This comes out of what fund, Terry?
This is wastewater.
This is a wastewater fund. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it was budgeted at $930. What did you say?
That's the remaining of what we got. It was $1,050,000. Okay.
And so next year we're saying we're going to expend $935 of that.
Right, that's what we have available. We're seeing numbers coming in about 410 range actually. So we're in much better shape. We do have some expenditures from the design consultant to pay for as well, but the actual hard physical construction, which is not true bricks and mortar. It is more of a injection system, a fabricated item. It's about $400,000.
Okay, thanks, Terry.
Yep.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Councilmember Villanueva.
How long will this project take? A couple of years or
No, we anticipate being able to complete this in next fiscal year.
next fiscal year? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks very much, Terry. You had another item?
This item is discussion on Resolution 2013-73, repayment of unallowable expenditures to the U.S. Treasury for ARRA grant.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I'm here to present a project as well as a solution to a complicated issue that we're sort of in the middle of. If you recall, back in 2009 or so, we received American Recovery and Reinvestment Act monies for various energy efficient projects. We moved through those projects. At the end, we realized some savings, and we use that towards a portion of a project. So tonight I want to present you with that project as well as a solution to the item here tonight. I'll give you a quick background. The project itself is what we're calling the Stadium Lighting Energy Savings Project. I'll give you a scope of that project. Our energy savings performance contract, and what that is that's our vehicle by which we can fund this project without adding to the bottom line of the city's budget. And then finally, the financials and our next steps for this project. So as I alluded to earlier, 2009, we received ARRA monies for about $812,000 to fund two activities. One was the solar project here at City Hall. The other was an energy audit at various facilities throughout the city. In 11, the strategic plan was adopted with one of the pillars being sustainability, and goal number one was reducing energy usage at city facilities, City Hall, the stadium. And so as we move through this project and we're finishing up the solar and finishing up the audits, we realized that there was savings available to us of about $67,000 on that from that ARRA grant. So we evaluated the Surprise Stadium from the in-house lighting. I'm not talking the field lighting here. Field lighting is a different animal in all itself. We realized that the stadium itself, when it was built, the lighting that was used there, the control measures or lack thereof that were in that stadium were available to be upgraded with significant savings to the city. And so we wanted to leverage these monies that we had available to us to do a complete project. But what was left over was not enough to do a complete project to holistically take care of the lighting at the stadium. And again, we're talking stadium lights, clubhouse lights, batting cages, those type of things. The tall lights on the stadium. And the ball fields are not to be touched here. So we applied for this third activity with DOE. They approved it, and so we moved forward. The project intent, the original project intent, was to, again, upgrade our asset, the stadium, upgrade the equipment, upgrade the controls, reduce our energy consumption, leverage our ARRA funds, available APS rebates, and then use the energy savings from those upgrades to pay for the third-party financed portion of the project. And we utilize what they call an ESCO, Energy Savings Performance Contract. Again, that is a vehicle by which a third party will put in the improvements, do all of the work, and then with the savings that are realized from the line item that we already had previously budgeted, if we had $100,000 for electricity, the ESCO, the improvements drop their usage by some amount. That delta pays for that ESCO over a period of time. After that, savings are all ours. And so if you remember, in early 2012, we procured equipment, utilized the remaining ARRA funds. Again, it was just one portion of the total project, but we procured those funds. We procured those lighting equipment with those funds. And then shortly thereafter, we as a city realized our own financial situation, and the ESCO portion of the project was sort of put on hold. As we came into 2013, we were closing out the grant fund DOE had asked us for some information as it relates to the project, at which time they determined that the expenditure that was made for the project that was basically on hold was unauthorized, and so therefore they were requiring the return of that money. But the beauty of the ESCO and the availability of the ESCO will allow us to actually pay ourselves back, make ourselves whole for this monies, and then continue with the project. The scope of the project itself, if I can just dive into it a little bit here, would be to attack three major areas: the batting cages, our clubhouses, and the stadium concourse. The intent in the batting cages, currently there's, believe it or not, there's 220 light fixtures up there, 400-watt light fixtures. These are high bay, warehouse-style lights. They take a long time to warm up, if you can imagine the old gymnasium style. And we're proposing to replace those with 216-watt high-output T5s. And what a T5 is it's the fluorescent tube fixture. They're really small now and extremely more efficient. They don't take time to warm up, and they're instant on. The other thing with the batting cages is that the batting cages were all on. There's 5 runs in each cage. They were either all on or they were all off. Now we're looking to put occupancy sensors, so if there's a batter in run 1, only run 1 comes on. Batter in run 2, only run 2 comes on. We didn't have that capability before. With the clubhouses, we are going to change to electronic ballasts, which is a control mechanism. This is the newest control mechanisms for fluorescent lights, as well as replace those lamps to current T8s in that respect. And then also add occupancy sensors. What we were finding is if the ball players come in, they turn the lights on, they go do team functions, and they leave. Until a staff member comes around and to realize the lights are on, they stay on. And so now we're going to install occupancy sensors to help turn those things off. And then finally, the stadium concourse. There's 84 lights under there presently. They're about 175 watts a piece. They're metal halides, very hot bulb, but very inefficient. We're tending to replace those with 125-watt induction lights, which is a different kind of bulb. It uses a different kind of filament. It lasts a long time. It's very efficient. And then also add photosensors. Right now, being in the concourse, there's some instances the lights are on. It's broad daylight. These sensors will recognize the sun's up, turn those lights out, and then they'll come back on when it's dark. The ESCO, what you see before you is the beauty of the ESCO. And so currently, if you can imagine, we are devoting electricity usage and O&M funds to particular budget line items and streams. Electricity goes to the power company, O&M is paid for in-house for operation and maintenance. What the ESCO does is that it interjects itself. The project is completed. The savings that are realized, we're lowering the electricity usage. That difference goes to pay the ESCO. The O&M is also lowered because we have new fixtures, more efficient fixtures, but yet our overall budget line items that we were already budgeting for are now remain the same. And so after the ESCO is paid for, and in this case, we'll just use a 5-year, after the ESCO is paid for, those savings, we no longer have to pay the ESCO. The electricity is now reduced. Our O&M is now reduced. And so the savings from what we had previously budgeted for is now reduced, and therefore we can reduce our budgets for those particular line items associated with it. I did add a little bit of it's just pictorial here, but presuming APS will increase their fees over time, it's inevitable that a little bit of increase would occur. But the life expectancy of fixtures like this are somewhere between 15 and 20 years, and so therefore we've got a good 10 years of reduced consumption and savings. So in a nutshell, the purpose of the ESCO is to utilize future energy savings to fund improvement projects, and the benefits again are zero impact to our capital general fund. We don't have to add any upfront costs. We will utilize those savings that we realize over time to pay for those ESCO, and so it's zero impact to the bottom line. For this project, we have estimated that we're looking at about a 204,000 kilowatt hour annual savings. It's an estimated savings about 30,000 The breakdown is effectively about 26 for energy, about $3,000 for O&M. It's also available. It's also has APS rebates associated with a pretty significant amount. Under our present solution, the total project value is about $194,000. Our APS rebates account for about $52,000 of them. So the net total project cost is about $141,000. Again, that is what the ESCO will finance for us. Estimated rate of return for us is also about 5 years, with a typical life expectancy of our fixtures, 15 to 20 years. So over time, after we pay off the ESCO, we're looking at $260,000 for a 10-year period. If they go longer than to 20 years of expectancy, we'll certainly see more. The diagram before you sort of illustrates our plan of attack for the project as we move forward. Given our mandate by the DOE, we'll move our monies from grant match contingency to the general fund. The general fund will pay the Department of Energy. We'll complete and contract with our ESCO here. We'll sell the product to the ESCO, thus replenishing our general fund coffers, and then install the improvements in its entirety, not just what we paid for originally, but the remaining portion of the project. Therefore, in the savings realized will pay the ESCO over the term of the agreement, and then in the end, we will see significant savings from the electrical savings we see. Timeline, we're looking at complete negotiation with our ESCO next month, contract with the parties in August, and then sell the equipment in September, and then install the improvements by the end of the calendar year. With that, I will certainly take any questions.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, Terry, you gave us a lot of information there.
My apologies, and I spoke really fast as well.
You do. So I was trying to listen fast. Okay. Okay, on the budget consultation where we decided to pass on ESCO, that was a couple years ago?
We were, it's right around the time we were looking at our own finances here that we spoke with finance, and it was something that they were, again, all their efforts were focused on figuring out where we were.
Yeah.
It was shortly before we did our RIFs and a few other things.
Okay, so the way I figure it, it was a $74,000 decision that we put off.
You know, something along those lines.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so therefore we lost the grant of $67,000.
If I could add, and it's not in these slides here, but it's in the staff report I provided you, had we moved forward with the project with the grant funds, we would be required to follow a Davis-Bacon wage rates for the project itself. Unfortunately, that adds about $40,000 in
well, that's
labor
good
rates.
information to know.
And so in the end, you take that off the top.
$4,000.
It's like a $26,000 difference in the end. We lost a year of return on our investment. In a sense, we went from 4 years to 5 years, but the delta is a lot smaller.
Okay, so ESCO finances this.
That's correct.
Okay, so they buy the bulbs and then they want to pay back on the savings.
Mm-hmm.
So they take the savings the first 5 years.
That's correct.
And then it comes to us
That's correct.
for the last 10 to 15,
life
depending on the
expectancy
life
of
cycle.
units.
And you're saying the life cycle maybe 20 years?
It could be 20 years. So what I see in the new fixtures is that's where we're looking at. We're 15 to 20 years of the fixtures.
And then, from what I understand, APS changed the pricing structure of the stadium.
For the business solutions as it relates to these type of rebates, it changed slightly, actually a little bit in our favor, from 12 to 13.
Our favor?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got the
Yeah.
impression it was going to be higher rate.
Well,
Right.
The rebates, if you're talking the rebates that go
No, I'm
for
not talking
equipment-
about the rebates. I'm talking about the KWH charges.
Oh, absolutely. That doesn't work in our favor. Well, let me take that back. The cost per kilowatt has changed. All that does is decrease our rate of return. We
Yeah.
could see the savings quicker.
Right, and you kind of calc that in a little bit. But,
Right now, we just based on what we've got right now. If it goes up next year, yeah, that rate of return could come back down. But right now, we're based on today's dollars with today's rates and today's interest.
Yeah, okay, I think it's a good move. Now, is this, when you're talking about the lights changing out the lights, whatever, are we talking about, you measure everything in lumens, right, which is the brightness?
Not in indoor lighting. You normally don't change lumens.
So, but does it give the same light? Is it?
For the batting cages, it's extremely important. Major League Baseball has certain standards, and so we did factor that in, that they require a certain lighting output within the cages so that they basically get no shadows.
Okay, so we've done that analysis.
Yes, we've done that analysis, absolutely.
Good. All right, that's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilmember Williams.
You answered my initial question, Terry, in terms of, was it just the performance timeline from losing that grant? So, and that's
yeah, the grant
why we lost
grant ended in October of 12. We went through. This is when we realized that. Well, we didn't realize that we went through the closeout procedure. They gave us a series of documents. They asked us a series of questions. We answered them to the best of our knowledge, and then we shortly came back afterwards. They said, "Well, you didn't finish the project." That is
Right.
not an allowable expense, exactly. And
Is there any other grant opportunities that we might be investigating to supplement, offset
we
some of the
haven't
costs?
found anything that would allow us to do this.
What we're doing,
Exactly.
or expand the scope of the project?
We could certainly expand the scope of the project. Actually, we've been working with CRS very closely, as well as finance, for other opportunities to grow this vehicle, this ESCO vehicle, because we are seeing at the stadium that APS increase has bumped us into another category, which ratcheted us up a good 20% in some instances. But to stay in good standings with the DOE, it's best to just take our lumps here, and then we'll work on our ultimate savings later on. Yeah. The other aspects of the project, the solar has probably saved more than that so far through performance incentives, as well as just the reduction of our energy usage here. And so we're in the positive still, but we'd have to look into and see if there are other avenues for other grants. We haven't found anything yet.
It'd be nice to do what we've done at the library, to do what we've done at City Hall, and what some of the schools are doing right now. The Dysart schools are, I mean, if you go to Sunset Hills and Cimarron Springs, they've got solar panels covering their entire property almost. So, with those as one of our pillars, it'd be nice to kind of continue to pursue those opportunities as the cost of electricity continues to go up.
Absolutely. There are vehicles for which to bring in solar as well, similar to this. Unfortunately, from the utility standpoint, those performance incentives are not as what they used to be. What we are getting here at City Hall is gone by the wayside. It's a lot smaller. But there are vehicles, they call them power purchase agreements or solar service agreements, that we can get the stuff on our roof for next to nothing, and then the savings that are realized, a portion goes to the solar service agreement handler, and the rest of it comes to us. So.
Would that be somewhat like a lease for the equipment?
They haven't gotten to the lease yet. No, they still own the equipment. The third party who puts it up there, they still own the equipment. Mm-hmm. Now, financing avenues are changing daily, and that thought of a lease where we would use the savings, and then in 15-year block, that equipment, that physical solar equipment, becomes ours. But really, it's still within the PPA realm right there.
Okay. Councilmember Alton.
Thank you. In the city of Surprise, there is companies that are doing solar mm-hmm. on residential, mm-hmm. and basically what it is that they don't have to pay anything for it.
Right.
And it's like a 20-year lease thing.
Solar City, is that what you're referring to?
I have no idea what the name of the company is. Mm-hmm. But they put these solar on top of the houses, and it goes into the grid. Mm-hmm. If the resident doesn't use it all. So, how does that compare with what we have for the city?
For our solar, Our solar is strictly, the amount of solar we have will not exceed the amount of usage. We would have to cover this whole campus with solar. The solar we have presently cuts into our overall usage and thus reducing our overall usage. There is no excess that goes back to the grid. So we utilize everything that is generated from the sun to reduce our grid consumption, essentially.
But we have only the city hall that's got the solar,
That's correct.
correct? If we had other facilities covered with solar, would that change the scenario? And that we would get a kickback from APS or whomever to help offset the cost?
We actually have
No
two.
cost to the city.
True. We actually have two other facilities. Councilmember Williams mentioned the library has solar on top of it. We didn't pay for anything for that installation either. It also is just a percentage of our park and ride, albeit very small. That is the one that actually is an off-the-grid facility. What we do put back on the grid is really small. The wholesale of electricity is laughable, essentially. We will not be getting big checks from APS for it. So the best thing we can do is, as we did over there, is size it so that we break exactly even. And we're running probably a negative $60 last time I checked on what our overall yearly bill is.
Can I continue? Thank you. I have some neighbors that are going to do this thing, and they have a APS allotment of like $170 a month because they are on the
Managed plan.
management plan. But that's going to go down to like $40 because they're going to put power back into the grid, supposedly.
Right.
I can't imagine how that happens on our lines, but so how can we play off of that on the city of Surprise to do the same thing for us?
We would have to investigate entering into some agreement with a solar provider to really whitewash ourselves, if you want to call it, with panels. And that would then be, in essence, they fund it, they install it, they pay for what the electricity that they produce. We pay them for the electricity they produce at a lower rate, and effectively we'll still pay for the grid at peaks and valleys of the years. When you talk residential, in the summer, APS still gets a check. In the winter, APS gets no check, and so for us it'd be the same way. But eventually, effectively, the savings that we would see from paying this power purchase supplier at a lesser rate would be our savings, and so that would be our vehicle, would be a third party, unless we wanted to come up with money and do it ourselves. Grants right now are very hard to come by for such things.
Councilmember Holton.
Thank you. Is there any room of negotiations with APS regarding what we're doing in trying to conserve energy?
In this respect, or just in general?
In general.
APS has been very forthcoming in the sense that they've told us when rates are going to be raised and how and which classifications are going to be raised, and then they're actually offering us solutions by which we can reduce our rates. So using the stadium as an example, it might be even in the 8-acre park, we have a single service entrance that, given its usage, is in the large category. They said if you effectively were to split your service entrances, you can come down and become in the medium category, thus eliminating that increase that they are placing on the large consumers. We here at City Hall, the central plant in particular, was a large consumer. We've made some modifications, so now we're sort of teetering on the large and medium. All departments are pitching in. IT is looking at their solutions to help bring that down as well. So they've been very forthcoming. I don't believe there's any room to negotiate rates. That's pretty much ACC.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there any solutions, Terry, that have not been mentioned as to how we can mitigate increased cost versus what you've already said. So if there's a solution out there that we haven't even talked about that maybe costs some money, but overall we would receive a benefit from it, let us know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you have anything?
I'd have to look into it. What we've got here, the ESCO, some renewable energy possibilities. Those are the tried and true methods. Reduction of energy is habitual, and so we have to look at ourselves as well. We have a lot of equipment in our new facilities that we've got motion sensors, we've got timers, we've got lighting control. We're computerized. We just set it and forget it, and it goes on and goes off. Here at City Hall and other places in the city, people have gotten into the habitual manner of just hitting the light switch or turning the AC down or that type of thing. So we work on ourselves first, and then take some of these tried and true methods and increase their value. This project is a really small. A lot of ESCOs don't look at anything under. Some don't look at anything under $10 million. We've been able to partner with and work with a group that's going to look at these smaller ones. But for example, Tempe leveraged some money that they received to do a $15 million ESCO. They've got older buildings than we do. They are looking into the mechanical world for things. Lighting is the fast turnaround, the quick buck. In this respect, mechanical takes a little bit longer to see your returns. But I anticipate us being in that world here. It could be pretty soon with some of our older facilities, and so we'll certainly look into it and see what other avenues are out there. There are some on the cutting edge. I don't know if we're really ready to step off that one yet. Let them work out their bugs. Right here is what the two tried and true methods are.
I appreciate this line of conversation, but also we need to recognize that many of the incentive programs that tried to start and the burst of energy savings through use of solar, those incentives have now disappeared.
Absolutely.
And that there's some regulatory discussions now at our state regulator with APS and other power providers about the use of solar and the trade-offs. I think one thing that is somewhat controversial is the fact that those that have chosen to go off the grid with the use of solar, there's credits that are then showing up on others' bills, those people who just do the traditional. And so that is a controversy that needs to be addressed at the regulator and try to make sure that we get resolution. So good conversation, good discussion, and obviously we're always looking for saving energy. That is a very important component of our strategic plan is sustainability. So thanks very much. Any other questions? Seeing none, we have call to the public. Is there anyone that has asked to come to the call this evening?
No, Mayor.
Okay, very good. And so I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Meetings, okay. Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.